All right. With that said, let's settle down and get into our topic for the day. This young lady, she is not new to us. We love her teachings, and she's on the way to RD, on the way stop there on the way to RVP. She talked about last week forgiveness and check yourself. She hails from Southern California. She's got two adult children. I've called them adult, young teenagers, and her husband, who I had the pleasure of meeting at Mr. Byron Nelson's birthday party down in Hollywood, and just a great leader, and also her sidekick. I shouldn't say that. Miss Jen also put those two together, and it's just fun till Daddy takes the T-bird away. Without further ado, the great one and only Miss Heather Peery.
Good morning, Coach Thomas. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Yep, it is fun. The whole time. That's an old school song, Till the Daddy Takes the T-bird away. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Peery. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for this a call. Thank you for who you are, because you are, without a doubt, a legend in this business. We are all babies in this business. So thank you so much for taking us under your wing and coaching us and having this call. And like I said last week, you really do have a hand in my journey and everyone on this call, because you put this call on and all the different speakers that come on, and they speak to us and they make us grow and they stretch us. So thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are all doing well. I hope last week's message you were able to maybe put into action, or at least start, or maybe it was thought-provoking and you did a little bit of thinking and a little bit of soul searching and a little bit of, I'm gonna think about that. That's a start always. So last week, we were talking about letting it go, things that you have to let go in order to start 2023. And so I'm going to get just right into it, nothing complicated, and just make it as easy and understandable as I can, because these aren't complicated subjects. They are in nature and how we feel and how we're going to go about them and how we process them. But what to do isn't always that complicated. We just have to get to action. So last week we talked about unforgiveness and the effects of it, and how I just love ACN, and how yes, we do get trained, and we have the best, and we have the world-class training for business and for the system and all that we have to do. But what I really love about ACN is that ACN wants us to be that all-around leader. So yes, business, and that's great, and make money, but also in our personal lives, because like I said last week, you're going to have a team, you're going to have teams, and you're going to have people that look up to you, that look to you for other things as you bond together and get closer. And they're going to look to you for some outside things, personal things. It's not always going to be business. And they're going to ask you, hey, what'd you do about this? This is what happened to me. This is a situation that's going on in my family, or this is what happened on the job, or this. And they're going to ask you, how did you get through that? How did you deal with this? And you want to be able to genuinely answer that. This is how I got healed from this. This is how I process this. You've heard stories already with Mr. Thomas. You see some influencers and leaders that after they talk about how much that he means to them, they actually say one of their experiences is talking to Mr. Thomas about something very personal that he had helped them out with. So this goes hand in hand. So these things. So we're going to do the work. We're going to get to work right now. So last week was unforgiveness, things that we have to let go for 2023 to be successful. This week, we are going to talk about, bitterness. They might sound kind of the same, but we still need to identify these things. So bitterness. So any ideas you can put in the chat? Any ideas? How does bitterness start? Bitterness. How does it even start? It's a very, very simple answer. If you have any ideas, just put it in the chat. Bitterness. How does that even begin? Unforgiveness, unresolved issues. Yeah, I'm actually looking for a word, envy. I'm looking for a very easy word. People that have been, yes, Jenelson, hurt. Simple, right? I told you we're going to be really basic today. It's people that have been hurt. Plain and simple. Bitterness starts when we've been hurt. Now, it can be anything. It could be, there's a wide spectrum of hurt, right? So we live in this world, it's not perfect, and we get hurt. And can we all agree that it's something that's unavoidable? Okay, we will be hurt. So these things are so good to be able to identify quickly before, I'm going to take you through, before we can see what it's going to turn into, okay? So it starts with being hurt by someone or by a situation. Okay. And a lot of times when this happens, we get hurt and it comes inside, right? It's internal, right? So we can't avoid getting hurt, but it's what do we do with that after we get hurt? The big difference is how long do we keep it when we get hurt? Yes, we can learn, right? Okay, now I know not to tell this person certain things. There's basic things like that. Or now I know, okay, you got a little bit of wisdom because you got hurt. But what if it's just a really big deal? What do we do with that? You know, so like I said, we talked about the effects last week. So now I wanted to get into the definition of bitterness. And I looked it up in the Webster's dictionary, and it said those basic words like, what is bitterness? Envy, like you guys put here, anger, disappointment, all these words that we know. But what does it really do? Like we hear bitterness and we're like, oh, they're just bitter. But for some reason, we just kind of go, oh, they're just bitter. And we kind of move on and going on like, yeah, they're just a bitter person. But what about us? We got to look inside of us, like something that has either happened, could have been something that happened last week or last month. Of course, we know it's something that can happen years ago. And we just, like we talked about last week, we put it aside, we bury it, but we don't realize that subconsciously there's that bitterness there because it was unresolved. And this is just, it's so basic, but so profound at the same time, because the bitterness left unattended, it starts to go wild and affect us in other areas of our life. So I looked up a couple of verses that just, you can take it for knowledge, but I looked up the Bible just to see what it was saying. But there was in Ephesians, is it 4:31, it said, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor, perpetual animosity, resentment, strife, fault finding, and slander be put away from you, along with every kind of malice, spitefulness, verbal abuse. It said, let that be put away. And there was another one that stood out to me. It said, see, it was Hebrews 12:15. See to it that no one falls short of God's grace, that no root of resentment springs up and causes trouble, and by it many be defiled. But what stood up to me was, we talked about the root before, right? It says the root of springs up and causes trouble. So I thought, what could those causes of trouble be? Like, what's the big deal about this bitterness and these words that we hear? What can spring up? So I learned, I was looking at a few videos, and this person was talking about wrath. And I thought wrath and anger were kind of like the same thing. We think like wrath, oh, you're going to feel the wrath, right? But when you have bitterness and you have that hurt, there's something that starts that's called wrath. And it's a slow, let's say like it's a slow cooking. When you want to really make something taste really good, you slow cook it for hours and hours, right? Because then all the flavors get in there and all that stuff. Well, wrath is anger slow cooking, and it's inside. And what's tricky about bitterness is no one can see it. So you can show up with your friends, you can go to Christmas parties, you can show up for years, have a smile on your face, and no one can detect bitterness unless it starts getting out of control. Or no one can detect, not bitterness, wrath. It's inside. Maybe someone has done something that you think is just, and you're probably right, the most unforgivable thing. Or they said something to you, or they did something to you, or they did it twice or 3 times or 4 times. It is just unforgivable. And there's that wrath in there. Every time you go to it and think about it, you replay it in your mind. So wrath, so slow cooking anger doesn't really come out yet. It's just wrath. It's inside. Okay, you can think about it. This is all going on by yourself. You're not even talking to anyone yet. You're thinking of replaying what happened again, and there's a wrath in there. You're not having a conversation, but there's wrath, slow cooking, like that slow burn. Slow burn, he described that and said, wow, that's a great picture. But remember, this is the beginning. Nothing has happened yet. This is just the beginning. So you've gotten hurt, or someone said these things that were just, oh, horrible, really, really wounded you, like really affected you. And now the wrath has started. And I'm going somewhere because these are, now remember, this is the start of something before we are actually bitter and it's affecting our life. So the wrath starts, okay? The slow cooking anger. Now, think of this. If you have a slow cooking anger, it's got to go somewhere eventually, right? So think of yourself as that mom, that dad, that friend, that sister, that daughter, that leader in ACN, and you got to deal with people in this world on a regular basis. Hopefully you can kind of foresee, where's wrath heading? Where's wrath heading as far as affecting your outlook on life or your personality? Okay, so we got that slow cook anger inside. Okay, then after wrath, if it's left unattended, remember these things are being left unattended. So now wrath, now it's turned into anger. And we all know anger, or we think we know anger. Now anger is what you see on the outside. Okay, now people can start kind of trying to tell now in your conversation, or when certain subjects come up, now we can kind of start hearing the anger. Maybe every time, maybe there's just, I'm just doing random, I didn't talk to anyone. Maybe when the concept of family or moms, dads, love, relationship, maybe there's a certain subject that comes up and there's just a little bit of negativity when everyone's talking about it, or a little bit of sarcasm. Oh, I'm just being funny, sarcastic. No. You're not able to talk about it. Just let people have that conversation about that certain subject without putting your little bit in there, because you're just a little bit angry about it. So I'm just pointing out, okay? So this is, you were hurt, turns into wrath, and turns into anger, okay? So we know anger. So after that anger is in there, and we've seen angry people, we've all been around angry people, right? So when you start to have a conversation with them, or if something gets out of control, there's this anger that comes out when you're talking with them, right? Or they can't control it, and it's just right away, anger, right? Then after that, what comes? Anger is, you don't have control of your emotions when you're angry, right? Because you're just so, it's inside. You feel that thing that isn't resolved. The anger comes out, and then what? There's hurtful words, evil speaking. That bitterness left unattended, going through these stages and growing and getting bigger. Now you're saying things that you never even thought or dreamt you would say, because you're angry in that moment, because there's some bitterness from back here that you did not tend to. Now it's starting to branch out. Now it's affecting other areas of your life. And now you've said the most horrible thing that someone who has said that to you, that wounded you, now it's coming out of you. And this, I really want to point out the simplicity of this is all because when you got hurt, let's say last week, or let's say years ago, but it could be as soon as like, it was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, this was left unattended and left just to sit and fester. This is what comes from it. So a lot of times when we wonder why are certain people act this way or that way, or how did they get to this point? Sometimes it really is as easy as, you know what, something from way back here, or something that happened in school, something that happened in junior high, someone said this one thing, or something was said, and in that moment you were just mortified, or you were just so embarrassed in front of everyone, and it happened in 8th grade, you never forgot it, and then you're an adult and you could still relive that moment like it was yesterday. This is so common. And that root and that bitterness begins. So my encouragement to some people on the call is there year after year something that is still there that you just keep taking with you? every year. You're just taking it with you. You keep pushing it and bearing it and not paying attention to it, but you can feel it inside. There's just everything else is fine, but then there's this one thing right here, this one subject. When it comes up, it's there. Wouldn't you like to be free from that? Wouldn't you like to release that? And how important that is? Because again, ACN, we are so interested in that full 360-degree leader. That means personal too. And and also too, my heart just like comes out to anyone on this call who is dealing with that, because I know I've dealt with that with just so many people in my family, and I know what it's like to be on that side and then to be free on the other side, and how much better it is on the other side, and just how it's almost like torture to just constantly hang on to that bitter, to hang on to that. I can smile, I can laugh, I can joke, I can do all the things that I do, but when it comes to this, there's this thing still right here. Okay. And so it takes a lot of humbling of yourself and being brave to admit, hey, this is what happened. This is how it made me feel. This is how it's affecting me now. This is what it's actually pouring into right now. Now, what am I going to do? Okay. So, this guy I was listening to, I never listened to before, his pastor called Adrian Rogers. He said this thing. I said, wow, it's really good. He said, the moment I start hating a man, I become their slave. I said, whoa, that's true, because it's locked in here. You're always like, you can go instantly to that moment and just think about it and just be like, and all of a sudden you forget where you are, and you're like thinking of that person and what you're going to say to them, what you're going to do to them. And if I see them again, and you are, and it just comes up. It could come up multiple times a day. And it's like, wow. So then I thought, you know what, let's fill in the blank. You guys fill in the blank. If there's anyone, the moment I start hating my mom, I become her slave. The moment I start hating my dad, I become his slave. The moment I start hating, I don't know, whoever the person's name is, I become their slave. And then also now the physical effects, just like unforgiveness, these are different emotions, but then there's the same effects. There's an emotional effect affecting you, your everyday, but then there's also physical. So I really want you guys to get this, like this affects us physically. We talked about unforgiveness and the effects of it physically on you. We all know, we have all heard like stress causes this. You guys know that like stress will actually physically cause, sickness or cause something in the body. Same with these negative emotions. So with bitterness, it's where is it? Bitterness. Oh yeah, it causes stress hormones, which will cause fatigue. Wild, right? Same like with stress. So I love that our ACN training, part of our training is having that emotional management. They always train us, right? No emotions in business. If someone tells you no, or if they're rude about the opportunity, just keep going, right? They don't train us to like get mad, you tell them off, make sure before they leave, you better tell them, don't come back here, and you better say this and that and give it to them. And then we all laugh about it after and we leave, and good thing we're not going to see them again, right? And then we all like laugh, and that's part of our training. No, we talk about no emotions in business. That training is so good for life. Do you know all that training that they show us in that section that they go through on mindset? You transfer that. Hey, holidays are coming up, right? Christmas is coming up. People come over, family members come over. Maybe you don't like some of them. Maybe some of them are annoying. Maybe someone actually said something to you at one of these family gatherings and you didn't like the way they said it. Or maybe they were full on rude when they came to your house and said something. Maybe they did make a comment on what you wore or what you cooked or what you didn't bring, or maybe your house is too small, or maybe you should this or that. No emotions in the business of life, right? Like, okay, obviously this person, since they came in with this negative attitude to my house that I opened up, something's up with them, right? So this is also good. Yes, I'm telling us to look at us, but then also it helps you with other people. So you're not taking that in, and you're not like, oh my God, and going through all the emotions of being offended, having bitterness start, which will go to wrath, to anger, and to saying things you shouldn't be saying, and carrying it with you in your everyday life. You can actually identify this in other people, which saves you, because you're like, okay, something's going on with them. I don't need to take that on. Yeah, that was pretty rude. You don't even have to say anything. You're just like, that's happened to me, where I'm like, in my head, I'll go, wow, oh my gosh, they don't even know how they just sounded right now. And I'll laugh, I'll be like, or I'll just keep smile. And in my head, I'm all, wow, that was really rude. Okay, moving on. And then we keep going, and I'm, wow, what a place of freedom to be at, to be able to do that, instead of, bam, took that one. And then you leave that conversation and you left with like 20 things that you're so offended about and mad about. And the crazy thing is, I'm going to get to this next part, is some people, they don't even know that they hurt your feelings. So you might be like, yeah, right. Yes, they did. They meant to say that. And you go through all these mental gymnastics, which are so exhausting. I've had to experience that with family recently, and I'm going through the hoops, like just listening. Yes, they did. They know what they said. They meant to do it. Oh, they knew what they were doing. All that stuff. It's like, man, I don't have time for that. Like, move on. Okay. So Dr. Darius Daniels had some great points that I wish I would have heard this before, but thank God he brought me to a point where I got to do this. So let's say you are offended. There is something that was said to you and done, and he had some steps to carry you through the process of bitterness. So the first, when something happened to you, he said to retreat. And this is so smart to do. And I had to do this with someone very close in my family. Was retreat meant to, give yourself a little bit of distance from that person, because maybe it is a very close family member. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a cousin that you see a lot, maybe it's a sister, a brother, something. But give yourself some distance, retreat, so that you can identify what some of those triggers were for you that they had said, and what are some triggers for you after you've been wounded by that. What are those triggers now that you have? You just need some distance. So distance means, if you guys usually see each other every whatever, or you talk on the phone, wherever, you just need some distance right now, because you got that wrath slow cooking right now. Or maybe you're just full on angry, or maybe it's just kind of taken, a turn for the worse. So give yourself some distance to figure out, okay, hold on, before this gets any worse. And now 10 years later, because we know that's an old story, right? Something happened 10 years ago, and then here we are hearing the story now, and you're like, when did this happen? 15 years ago. And you're like, dang, they're still holding, that grudge, or they're still upset. They could still rehearse it like it just happened. Like, I thought this was recent. I thought this was last week. No, it was 15 years ago. But imagine what it does inside 15 years later. And what does that do to your mental? That negative thought over and over. So retreat. So give yourself a little space, retreat, do the stuff that we've talked about before. Write this stuff down. How did it make you feel? Really be specific. Like, no one's watching you. Be very, it's just you. Made me feel this way. This is what it did to me. This is how, specific. So you can identify those triggers, because what happens when it's left unattended. That trigger that person did, you didn't go talk to them about that. Someone else will say something, do something that they have no idea about this situation over here. And now, wow, you're at them, and they're like, whoa, now you got something else to check on. Now they said something to you. Now you got two things. You got this situation here, and all of a sudden, life is terrible because of these two situations that you're not getting to. So retreat. Okay. So also, it also said, like, set a boundary, just for a season, set that boundary for yourself with that person, so you can figure it out and refrain. So refrain from just a little, the conversation for a little bit. Refrain maybe from having close conversation, maybe like you usually would. Maybe you used to tell them a lot of things. Maybe it's someone you confided in, whatever. Okay, so retreat and refrain, and then release. This right here, this release, I actually heard this from two different people, and I was like, wow, I've got to mention this. So some people don't know, so you want to release them. Some people don't even know that they hurt you. And like I said before, you might think, yeah, right, yes, they did on purpose. You can hang on to that, or we can entertain the other thing. Let's get real. It's actually possible. Some people didn't know that they hurt you. They didn't know. Maybe they're always rude like that. Maybe they're always sarcastic like that. Maybe they do not have a good, they're not self-aware enough to know how this would affect someone. They didn't think that far ahead to think. So some people don't even know they hurt you. Others, unfortunately, don't care, right? That's just truth. Some people just don't care. I am so sorry for that. And I'm sorry that you will not get an apology, and you may never, but some people don't care. They're mean. They've been hurt. And there's some mean people out there. Okay. It's just what it is. And then others know that they hurt you, and they know they should probably talk to you, but they're just not willing to humble themselves to have that talk and to apologize. So sorry. So, with all those things in mind, just like unforgiveness, this letting go of this bitterness and stopping our head is for you. Because you still need to move on in 2023. You have goals you want to achieve. You have relationships that you want to cultivate and grow. You want to branch out on something new. I don't know what that is for you. Maybe you just want to have more of something, whatever it is. But that weight of the bitterness and all of that, just like unforgiveness, it's a weight. It's going to keep you back here in 2022, and you're going to bring that same old thinking, that same old hurt. It's time to get real, to get brave, to get going and aggressively go after those things. Aren't you tired of thinking of that same incident over and over again, or replaying those same negative words over and over again? Quick story. I was visiting family last week in November, and there's a little situation. We have a family member that's going through a really hard time. It is a hard time, and it's hard for everybody because this person's having a hard time, and it does come into conversations, into things, and that's fine because we're there to help that person out, talk them through, be that listening ear, all of that. But there was something going on with another family member dealing with this family member, and it was beginning to be too much. This person's hard time leaking into other things. It was affecting the conversations they were having, the dependability of the person, because this person said they would do something and then they wouldn't, and this going on over and over again. And so this person was having a really hard time, and I could see that, we better get ahead of this, because I'm starting to see this could be something, because this person's going through a hard time, and you're really annoyed with this person going through a hard time, because this person that's going through the hard time, they're not in their healed spot right now. They're just not. They will be, but they are not. They're saying things they shouldn't say, making comments they shouldn't say, having a really hard attitude to be around. And that's just right now because they're going through a hard time. So when this person's coming around saying, doing, not doing, and this person's having a hard time dealing with it because they think, man, you should be over this by now. You should be A, B, and C. And oh my gosh, again, I said, I could see this person had stuff festering, and they were really bothered, and it was starting to form into a thing. I said, ooh. So good thing we got to talk and have a really good conversation. But it's like, hey, you might want to talk to this person and already straighten out some misunderstandings that you've had because of these emotions before it turns into something bigger. And all that's going on right now is this hard time, and it's going to pass. But what about, 5 years down the line, only because you didn't talk about it, you didn't straighten it out, it turned into some huge, ugly thing because we just didn't want to let go. We didn't want to humble ourselves. We didn't want to apologize. We didn't want to do these basic things. I'm not saying those aren't hard to do. I'm just saying this is the stuff that has to be done. I told you it's very basic, but it's hard to do. It's basic and profound, but it's hard to do. So when you feel that wrath, we talked about that slow cooking anger coming through in you, you know it before it happens. When you know that's happening, it's time to get ahead of it. Okay, it's time to get ahead of it. Don't ignore it. Don't go to work and just get busy. Don't busy yourself with whatever it is that you like to get yourself busy with. Look at it and handle it so that you don't have to have a bigger thing to handle down the line, because a year goes by really fast, a month goes by really fast, a week goes by really fast, and you're still thinking the same thing. So this is just my encouragement to you. When you're going into 2023, it is time to let go of that bitterness. And hopefully this helped you to identify it quicker. Same thing with unforgiveness. That's my whole goal of these things, is to be able to identify quick. It's not wrong or bad that you feel this way, or that this happened, or you're even thinking this way. It's okay, how fast can we catch this? And then how aggressive are you going to let this go? How aggressive are you going to process this so that you can let it go and be that leader that ACN needs, that whole 360-degree leader, to be for the other people that are going to come into your life, which is the main thing, right? So hopefully this encouraged you guys, gave you a little blueprint of what to do, and hopefully more importantly, maybe I brought to your attention some things. Maybe it dug up some things, which would be really great too. But this is week 2 of what to let go in order to go into 2023.